Welcome to another episode of NSX with Ivan. Today's episode will be about how I personally experienced using the migration coordinator tool when I tried to convert my home lab environment from NSX-v to NSX-T. This process wasn't really a success for me personally, and I'm going to explain you and I'm going to show you why. The thing that actually happened is that I didn't know that certain topologies are supported and other topologies are not supported. What I'm trying to say with that is that my home lab environment, I basically have a bunch of hosts, and my host basically had 3 active NICs. And I actually have 4, but only 3 are active. So the way how I set it up is that I'm using one for VSS with a VSS for my management network. The other one I use for vSAN, and I'm using another VDS for my NSX-v environment. So I had 3 VSS, VDS, and VDS. And what I actually wanted to do, also with the migration coordinator, I wanted to take these 2 VDSs, so for vSAN and for NSX-v, I wanted to combine these into one and use an NVDS or basically convert these into the NVDS and use NSXT with that. And that was my plan, at least from a theoretical point of view, and I thought it was going to work until I was finished with the whole process. So everything went right, and that's something you're going to see while I'm doing the steps. And all the way at the end, what it actually did is it converted my VDS or my VDSs to VDSs into 2 separate NVDSs, which didn't work out exactly how I planned, and it actually broke some stuff. And I had to start all over again. So not all over again with the whole migration coordinator process, because I was already at a certain stage that things couldn't roll back anymore. So I had to manually remove NSXT and also the NSXT bits, and a lot of headache. And I had to manually remove a lot of stuff. But eventually I started all over again. This is a typical video that you will show, or I will show you what can be done and what can't be done. But at least the whole migration coordinator process will be shown from the beginning until the end, so I will not leave any blanks. Thank you. Let's go. So here you can see my current VDS design with 2 VDSs, and here you can see the expected NVDS design that I actually wanted to have, but that didn't work out. So here you can see my end result where I ended up with 2 NVDSs. So let's start configuring or migrating my environment. So first I log into the NSXT manager on CLI. Then I'm going to log into the actual vCenter server and NSXT manager. So let's go to the NSXT manager first. I'm also going to log into the VMware website where I'm going to log in or download the actual Edge OVS. So let's log into the NSXT manager and now into the vCenter server. And while we're logged into the NSXT manager, the first step is to browse to the migrate tab here, or system migrate, and then we see that we need to enable the actual servers. So let's do that, and let's go back to the CLI of the NSXT manager, and let's enable the servers. Now the server is enabled. We are going to go to the VMware website, and we're going to download the NSXT Edge OVS, which are required in order to stage them or pre-stage them, which are going to be used in the migration coordinator. Now let's we'll go to the NSXT data center bit. There you go. And let's select the NSX Edge for VMware ESXi. And once we've done that, we're going to do a quick check and see if my NSX-v environment is green and healthy, because that is one of the prereqs. If your environment is not healthy, your migration coordinator will fail at some stage, right? So we're going to check a few things, check the host preparation, is everything on green? And it is. So this is just a pre-check. Also, we can see that my management cluster is not prepared, but my compute cluster here, you see everything's enabled in green. Now, our next step will be that we're going to deploy the actual edge VMs. So let's start doing that. Deploy the OVA or OVF template, and we're going to select the file that we just downloaded. And we fill in the required parameters like the VM name, for example. And select the proper compute cluster, because our edges are going to be in the compute cluster. And I'm going to select the small because it's just a test. And my lab environment isn't that big. Let's select storage and select the proper network interface cards where everything, or proper networks where everything belongs. And let's type in the passwords that are required. And also the IP address details, obviously. And this is the second one, the second edge. Quickly deploy that. I fast forward the video a little bit so we can see, and the steps are exactly the same, only the IP address and the VM name is different. And once we've done that and the actual edges are deployed, we are going to register the edges with the actual NSXT manager. We're going to do this through the CLI. So first of all, let's look at the VM, and they are there. We need to power them on, obviously. And once they are powered on, both of them, we're going to log in with them with SSH. So let's go, let's do that. Before we're going to do that, let's connect. We first need to get our thumbprint from the NSXT manager itself. And we need a thumbprint in order to register the edges. Now let's log into the first edge. And then use this command to join
this edge to the actual NSXT manager. And within 1 minute you will get a message. Let's go to the other NSXT manager, or sorry, the NSXT edge as well, and do exactly the same steps. We can copy the full command. And after a few minutes, you'll see that it's successfully registered for the first one, and the second one will get the same kind of message. Now that we've done that, our next step will be logging into the NSXT manager, and we're going to do a quick verification if our edges are actually registered, yes or no. So here in the fabric, we're going to nodes, and then from the node section, we will select the edge transport nodes, and there you can see our edges. Well, you can see that one is still busy with doing stuff, but anyway, they are registered in there. So our next step is to add a compute manager. We're going to add our vCenter server in, which is the vCenter server, my vCenter server, which actually has NSX-v, or yeah, for the environment where NSX-v is installed on. So let's type in the credentials and add in our compute manager. And we can see it's connecting, and eventually the connection status will be up. Our next prereq step is that we need to configure an IP pool, which is going to be the tap pool for my edges. So my edge VMs are going to run on my compute as well. And the goal is to create a tap pool with well, an IP range. And finally, my gateway. Now that this tap pool exists, we're going to start the fun part, which is going back to the migration coordinator, and we need to get started. And the first step is to, well, select your NSX manager. So you need to select your vCenter server, and then again your username of the vCenter server. And you also need to have your NSX credentials ready, or your NSX-v credentials that you're going to type in. And we need this information because the migration coordinators are going to connect to the NSX-v manager, and it's going to retrieve your configuration. So that's one of the first steps. Once we've authenticated, now that we've authenticated, we can start. Now you will see there that it will detect your NSX-v version, and it will detect your vSphere version or vCenter version in the start. And now we're going to import a configuration. Well, this is fast forward and everything's successful. It has just imported my configuration. And now we're going to do a quick verification on my VDSs. So let's go to my virtual switches. And there you can see that I'm currently having a VDS and a VDS for compute and a VDS. I have two VDSs and one VSS, what I showed you before in the picture. Now let's continue. And if you continue, there are a lot of warnings that you need to go through and need to acknowledge, and if required, need to fix. So as you can see here, I'm just going through all of the warnings and trying to fix whatever needs to have fixed. Some of them are really parameters that I have to fill in because it's missing, that the migration coordinator will need in order for the actual migration. And some of them are just acknowledgements where VMware is trying to make you aware of things going to work in a certain way, or that you need to pay attention to, and not start to panic if you don't understand something. So most of the things are just warnings, as you can see, right? Just acknowledge them, yeah. And for some of them, you need to type in the parameter, for example, VLAN 21 that I'm using for my Edge tab VLAN. And let's just go through the list. And here you could already see that things were not going to go right? You see two NVDSs here, NVDS NSX and NVDS compute, which kind of broke my whole setup actually. But here you see that I have to select fastpath interface, and I'm just doing it as I should do, right? But I need to do that twice, and that should already should be a warning that things were going to go wrong. So here I also need to do the same thing for my other NVDS. And I think the thing what it did is it placed my two edges onto two different VDSs and now NVDSs, and my current setup basically didn't want to accept that because I had two ESGs in HA mode, right? So here you can see that I'm already running into problems. Trying to figure out what to do here. I didn't quite understand what I needed to do here. So I was wondering why. I have two VDSs. How hard can it be? And I want to go to one NVDS, but why is it giving me this kind of, well, trouble here? So I clicked, I tried some other things, and eventually, for some reason, I didn't even read, and I got it to work. I just selected an interface, and just to get rid of the annoying message, you can see it still wasn't resolved. So I continued with doing other things, and I kept that one for last. So basically, I stalled it a little bit. And then all of the checks were green except for the edge one, and I started to do this all over again. So let's do it again. Some of them are green, and now I thought, okay, you know what? Let me just do something. I can't even remember what I did, but luckily it's recorded here, so you can see here that it's giving me a warning. I did some clicking. Definitely want to be my first edge, or ESG replaced by my first edge, and that's what you get if you're not reading the messages properly and well, assume things. So let's see what I did then. I just started to go over them one by one, and this is where I made a mistake here. So I needed to type in an IP address. And this is going to be the actual management IP address of the actual Edge VM. And I actually typed in the VLAN of the tab, Edge tab. And then the IP address of the second edge. Well, this is the first edge actually. The other one was of the second edge. I just wanted to get rid of this as soon as possible, right? I didn't even read what I was doing. So, good tip: always read what you're doing. Also, at this point, as you can see, everything's green, and I was very happy. Even though I didn't, at this point, I was just expecting that it was going to go well, which it didn't. But you can see what actually happened here. So at this point, I just tried to see what I did, but well, actually, my mind was just only thinking one thing, just hit on the blue button over there and hit on continue just to get it over with, right? So I just did some quick checks. Looks interesting. It's probably okay because there's a green check, and eventually, well, I hit the submit button, and the next step would be that the actual migration is being done from the current ESGs, so the current NSX-v ESGs, that configuration and the way how they operate is going to be imported into the actual two edges we just deployed and integrated in NSX-v. Well, at this point, nothing really much happened to your NSX-v environment. Nothing's broken, you can still go back. So at this point, it will configure the edges and it will do its thing, and it will, or the edge VMs, I should say the NSX-T edge VMs. And at some point, it will finish and all green, everything fine, right? Here you can see a lot of things. So it went well. That was my impression. At least this part went well. And let's hit continue again. And the last step is to actually, well, this is where I migrate the edges. The first step was actually a pre-check. So it was the actual configuration where the configuration was converted into the edges, and then when the configuration was converted, now the actual migration goes down. So now we can kind of look at I did had two ESGs, NSX-v ESGs in my lab environment, and now during this step we can see we can do a quick check and see if those two ESGs are actually converted into a tier 0. So let's go to the actual place where we can, well, first we obviously need to wait until the configuration is at least a little bit further than 1%. And at this point I was kind of impatient. So let's go to the tier 0 gateway, and we can see that here you can see that there's actually tier 0 created, which is done by the actual migration coordinator. So all fine. I just did a quick check on the interfaces, two interfaces, which looks all good because I did have two uplinks. Or actually I had, yeah, I did have two uplinks, yeah. So here you can see and already the VDSs where I placed where the segments are actually uplinked to, and this all looked fine. I didn't have much issues with it. This all looked good, right? And at some point I looked at my segments, and my segments were also the segments that I had were also there. So all my NSX-v based segments that I had were all there. So let's go back to the actual. Oh wait, one more thing as well. Yeah, the edges were first they were blank, right? They didn't have any transport zones configured. And here you can see that well, they're still degraded because they're still busy with their configuration. But their setup actually, the configuration was successful, and the transport zone, as you can see there, I do have one VLAN transport zone, and for some reason I did have two other transport zones because they basically converts every VDS that you have into one transport zone, right? And I because I had two NVDSs, I also have to, or two VDSs to NVDSs transport zones. Now the last step would be to convert your hosts, where it's actually going to delete your NSX-v bits and copy the new NSX-T bits on top of that. So the only thing, you just need to select the cluster and hit start and migrate. And I did some reading. I'm just I think I actually read this because this is I guess from the whole migration process, this is the most exciting bit because at this point I actually realized, oh, when this actually happens, I cannot go back again. So in this field, everything is uh, I mean, I can redo everything. And I watched this and I waited. This took a while though. Uh, so fast forward, successful migration, 100%. And eventually, my last step was successful. And at this point, I felt like, well, I was on top of the world. Everything was working, and I only need to click the finish button and click the finish button again, and everybody's happy. But I wasn't happy, so it went wrong. It went wrong. I didn't read the pre-requirements properly. I didn't do my investigation properly. But at least you've seen the full process, right? That's what it's about.
So thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. At least I did. And as you can see, not everything can, when you try new stuff, sometimes it goes wrong. And I showed you at least the full steps from the beginning until the end. And I actually hope that I would or that I could show you the actual working thing. But sometimes it's like this, right? It's life. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.